Greetings and welcome to another Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team video. Today I'm going over how to use chess clocks in Kill Team, a guide about using chess clocks. But before we get into things, please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of this video. Did you find it useful or helpful? Remember, I've got a Discord you can check out in the episode description below, as well as a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. But yeah, as I said, today I'm going over how to use chess clocks in Kill Team. It's something I've actually been wanting to talk for a while, and I think it's quite useful to talk about. So I'll be going over all its uses, its downsides, as well as how you can use it for your own events and play. So let's get on with the video. So what is this video about? It's not for encouraging or forcing the use of chess clocks in every game of Kill Team, because, you know, you get a lot of people saying, chess clocks fix everything. They don't. And this video isn't encouraging people to do that. It's more of, if you weren't aware of chess clocks, making you aware of them and kind of reducing the stigma around them. I'll be highlighting the issues with playing to time when it comes to larger kill teams and or analysis paralysis, because that's one of the key things chess clocks help mitigate. Because sometimes when you're running larger kill teams, or you get lost in making the right decision when you have multiple decisions and what to do, sometimes just seeing the time doesn't help in terms of just seeing the round timer or of people calling out time milestones. Chess clocks actually give you a more precise number of time, like a larger value of time you're actually using. And then it's an alternative to using fixed round timers or round time milestones. Because as I said before, I would always, and I still always play with a round timer in terms of just, if my tournament round is now in 45 minutes, I'll have that on my phone and have that on the table for both players to view. And a lot of events now use round time milestones as pioneered by Warhammer World for Kill Team, where they'll go like, oh, you've both had 15 minutes, you should be starting turning point 1. It's been half an hour, you should have finished turning point 1, that kind of stuff. And then this is just a helpful suggestive guide when it comes to chess clocks in Kill Team. Because as I said, this is not trying to force chess clocks onto people. It's more about making people aware and giving people a general guide to use. Because Glasshouse did a video on chess clocks, and that's really useful. But Kill Team 2018 is quite different to Kill Team 21. And the game's changed quite a bit. So I wanted to give a more up-to-date guide and my take on it as well. So what is a chess clock? It's a timing device used in chess, you know, as the name suggests. Each player is given a fixed amount of time to use for the game, split evenly. So for example, if you had a 90-minute game, each player would get 45 minutes, and so on. So you split basically the round time in half and allocate to each player effectively. And then each player is in control and responsible for managing their own time. So basically at the top of a chess clock, you have a switch, which you push down and then you start your time. And then once you've finished, your opponent either presses their side or you press it for them. And then it goes to their turn and they have to manage their time. The clock can be paused for specific scenarios, but that would be clarified in your rules pack. And generally, you shouldn't really pause the clock because it kind of defeats the purpose of pausing it, as it's meant to be a fixed countdown. And then it's very good at stopping slow play. It doesn't eliminate it, because there's still ways to game a clock, as in every scenario when it comes to tournaments and games in general. But it does help mitigate slow play the most, because it's really hard to cheat, but still possible. And then chess clocks really picked up usage in Warhammer games via Warhammer 40,000 in ITC a few years ago, when they had a lot of issues with timekeeping. But as I said, there's been issues with clock time as well. So that's how it kind of crept into Warhammer in general from chess. And once again, it's still open for abuse. It's not a golden situation. And when I say it's open for abuse, it's like if one player isn't aware of how to use a chess clock, it can be stuff like forgetting to press, or going, oh, even though my time's finished, we're almost finished, right? We've got like 5 minutes left. I should still be able to play out my time, or like arguing about when what happened to their time, it was lost due to disagreement, stuff like that. So even though it's a very useful tool, it's remembered to highlight it's still open for abuse. So the downsides of chess clocks: it is intimidating to use, both as a player and an opponent. It's quite disheartening in general when someone pulls a chess clock on you, because all of a sudden, especially if you don't know the person, it can be kind of like, oh, well, you just assumed I was not going to play to time. And especially, people view chess clocks as kind of this win at all cost mentality when it really isn't. But that kind of ties into the bad stigma. People think it's not really needed for Warhammer, as it is called a chess clock. And, it not really used. A lot of players advocate it for every game, at every table, at every tournament. But the issue with that is cost. It costs a lot to get a chess clock in comparison for events. And even then, if tournaments are encouraging use of chess clocks, then it's an additional cost for the player. So it isn't just a free use. And then probably the biggest issue, there's no clear set general guidelines for use. When I was actually looking up on chess clocks in general, I found people either didn't know what to do, or it was just kind of an ad hoc thing, or they ported rules from Warhammer 40,000. No real place globally has set rules. It's kind of, and even the places that do generally don't use them. That's probably the biggest downside for chess clocks in Kill Team, in my opinion. And then the other issues forgetting to switch time. This counts for both players. Even someone like me who has a lot of experience using chess clocks now, sometimes I forget to switch off my time, and then my opponent does their turn, and then I do my turn, and then I switch to my turn, and I'm like, oh, that was entirely in your turn, and I don't know when that is, or if my opponent forgets and vice versa. So it can be an issue from time to time, forgetting just to switch to someone else's time. So how to use a chess clock. Ensure the tournament you are playing it allows the use of chess clocks. This is the most important rule, right? I don't want people turning up to tournaments going, I've got my chess clock and I'm using it now, when your tournament specifically doesn't say anything about chess clocks. Because when it comes to chess clock usage, it's usually in the tournament pack, so always read the pack. And most packs will either say no or sometimes nothing. Because if a tournament is using chess clocks, they will say if one person out of the two wants a chess clock, then it's in use. But otherwise, there's no rule for it. And it's really bad etiquette to just turn up to a tournament and go to the TO and your player going, like, I know there's no rules about chess clocks, but we're using chess clocks, right? I only use chess clocks if a tournament specifically says they're allowed and if I feel it's needed. Don't bring it to every game and don't bring it to tournaments without checking. This is the key rule. Always be courteous. I think this helps, not saying people who use chess clocks are trying to be intimidating, but it's just to help mitigate that stigma chess clocks have. Now you can always say like, it's just being friendly, right? It's going to your opponent, look, I'm not trying to be judgmental or anything, but this tournament uses chess clocks and I just want to keep to my own time and make sure we're both playing to time, and I use chess clocks all the time, and it's okay if we just use this chess clock, it's in the pack. Don't worry, I'll help you how to use it. So it's not really trying to say you're slow playing, it's just making sure we both finish the time. That kind of thing. Don't just go, we're using a chess clock, that's it. No talk, game now. That kind of thing. Just keep in mind how both players feel. Then set the allocated time for each player as per the event. I usually do this in advance just because it's a hassle doing it at the time, because some players, like some tournaments are an hour and a half, an hour and 45, 2 hours. So allocate the time as the tournament and pack specifies. Initiate at the time stated by the event using the left and right top switches. So the moment the tournament pack says you start the chess clock time, you start it, and then you just go back and forth, generally not stopping unless specified otherwise. So you do get that pressure of using it. And then, as I said, you play until the game ends, only pausing at specific times, because once again, pausing the clock kind of defeats the purpose of it unless the pack specifically says when you can pause. And then if one player runs out of time, they can do nothing except for automatic/compulsory actions. And what I mean by this is they can only do stuff like when it comes to the strategic phase, they have to pass on everything. If they have to make like a defense roll, they make the defense roll. If they have to fight in close combat when they're attacked, they do that. But otherwise, they just pass. So effectively, let's say I had 10 minutes on the clock left and then my opponent ran out of time. I now have 10 minutes to finish the game while all my opponent can do is pass unless I shoot them or fight them in combat, if that makes sense. Use it if you fear your opponent may slow play due to external factors such as large kill team, etc. Now this is the difficult thing to use because you are kind of prejudging your opponent before the game begins. And that's why I always link it back to being courteous. You know, when it comes to tournaments, it is a contract between two people to finish within the set time. and you're just trying to ensure that, like, my rule of thumb is generally if I feel I'm running against a larger kill team or someone I know has an established history of not finishing to time, shall we say, then I will use a chess clock. I mean, I was using it a lot of the time against vet guard players, but I found vet guard players are generally quite good with the time now. But it's something like, if it was a general rule of thumb, use it against players that have large kill teams, like 12 to 14 models, as well as, now this may be a bit cruel, probably to new players as well. Generally, new players are really fine in my opinion, but because I have my own experience, I know how to keep to the time and go, and if they're so like, it's okay if we pick up the pace just for the time. But if you're not confident in doing that, a chess clock can help, but then you just have to keep in mind, when we link back to being courteous, is it really appropriate for using a chess clock on a new player? But it's something to keep in mind. That's just what I'm saying. Now, here's the chess clock settings. So these are general guidelines established by me, and also what we use at the London Wargaming Guild for our London tournaments. So when we're playing in London, these are the rules we use. I'm not saying it's the best, but this is the most balanced way we've found to use chess clocks in Kill Team, because the biggest issue with Kill Team, it's a very reactionary game with lots of simultaneous situations, which we've tried to reflect in the chess clock usage, because we feel just doing fixed half time doesn't make sense, especially when there's a lot of shared actions happening. But for the general guidelines, this is for an hour and 45-minute round tournament. Generally, you set 45 minutes for each player on the clock. 15 minutes of pause time is used for simultaneous events, basically, which is all the steps before deployment, which will trigger basically before barricade deployment. So we start our chess clocks the moment someone is due to place down a barricade and continue in there, and you only stop during simultaneous events, which is basically just the scouting phase for turning point 1, and then at the end of the round for counting up points and determining initiative, because generally everything else is fine. And, you know, basically you'll have 10 minutes for pre-game stuff, you know, selecting tac op, selecting your kill team, and then you have 5 minutes for doing initiative and end of round stuff. So that's how we found out, because it adds up to a total of 1 hour and 30 minutes for total game time, and then 15 minutes for total shared time, right? So you adjust as needed for other time frames, keeping in mind the 15-minute shared time frame, because that's what we found works the best. You can adjust the 15-minute shared time frame a little bit more, a little bit less, but this is what we found works the best, using it through multiple events. And then when it comes to rulings or judge calls, that either happens on pause time or on a challenging player's time. So let's say it's my turn and I go, I'm going to do this, and then my opponent disagrees, says I'm wrong, and I go, no, it's fine. And then they go like, okay, we'll call a judge. At that point, the clock would either pause or switch to their time. Because otherwise, if it continued on my time, my opponent could keep just challenging me and wasting my time, for example. And then sometimes the TOs preferred to pause the time, and then if it was like a big lag, like a minute or so, they'd give us extra time back. But I prefer the issue of more challenging on the challenging player's time, because if you're challenging a rules interaction, you should be confident in that, and therefore it should be in your time, because otherwise it's open for abuse, right? But this is the general chess clock settings, and I will do an article version basically saying all this eventually, but this is the main guidelines. If you wanted to use chess clocks, this is what I would recommend. It's been tested for a long time, and I think it's a really good time. Like really, really good clear settings. You know, just remember 45 minutes for each player, only pausing at the end of round and for initiative. So basically pausing for the scouting phase during turning point 1, and then at the end of initiative for every other turning point. And then, you know, basically effectively having 10 minutes until you get to barricades, and that's when you start the chess clock. But this is very clear, and I've tried to keep it to minimal points, but if you wanted to use chess clocks in your own game, these are the settings I'd highly recommend. So this is just a brief example chess clock. This is what I use, and pretty much everyone in London uses. It doesn't need to be expensive. Like chess clocks can get, wow, like there are some chess clocks which are like 80, 90 pounds. Like if you wanted to, like there's even more, right? The chess people are mad with their chess clocks, right? Because obviously it gets like officially sanctioned and stuff. So this is what I use. I got it on Amazon. I'll put the link in the episode description. I got it for like, I think £18. It's gone up a bit to 22. It's fine. The important thing is when you get a chest clock, just read the instructions and learn what it does. And yeah, it doesn't have to be fancy or anything. This is fine. It's just powered by like two AAA batteries. The most important thing is don't use digital or phone apps, right? Or like digital chess clocks or phone app chess clocks. So what I mean by digital is they're on your phone or on a tablet. Highly recommend just using physical chess clocks. They're easier, they're clearer. You don't have the issue of having to close them if like something like you're tracking scores or you're checking rulings or you're getting messages and stuff. I strongly recommend only using physical chess clocks because it's clear for both people and it helps remind people how to switch time. And it stops people, touching your own phone as well, that kind of thing. But yeah, I think, you don't need crazy expensive chess clocks if you wanted to use them. But this is what I use, and this is what we all use in London. So for the chess clocks overview, for these key points, just remember it's a great practice tool for speeding up your own play at tournaments. I had an issue when running Pathfinders when it got to a point where I would start struggling to finish for time. And then I started practicing with a chess clock, and now I haven't had a timing issue at all. It was intimidating to use at first, but now I know how to use a chess clock. I am comfortable playing it all the time, and it really did help speed up my games. And I think it's a great tool if you struggle getting games to time. Just use it when you play at friendlies with like your friends or gaming nights. Using that, even just in a practice setting, is a great way to make sure you finish your games on time and even ahead of time. I was so good with the clock with my Pathfinders, I was outpacing elite teams. So elite teams are usually like 5-10 minutes ahead of me. When I was really on it, I was usually 5 minutes ahead of an elite team, which was crazy. It's a useful way to help mitigate slow playing because it's really hard for someone to go, oh, I lost track of my time, because you should still remind someone when they're taking too long. But the chess clock is really a physical reminder than just a clock, because they can see their own time counting down and it just helps speed them up. It can be intimidating. Don't try and force the use of chess clocks, especially if your event isn't using them. Remember, as I said, most events that use chess clocks only need one player's approval, but always try and be cautious when using them. Don't just be really aggressive with using them. Always be friendly and clear. Remember, it doesn't eliminate slow play. Chess clocks can still be gamed. There's lots of incidents in Warhammer 40,000 and other tournaments where people have forgotten to switch time, and then like one player's ran out of time, and then there's been arguments for time, and then you had people who've ran out of time pressuring their opponent to give them some more time and just, we're close enough to the end anyway, that kind of stuff. So remember, it's not like this miraculous thing that can never fail. It's still flawed, but it's much harder to abuse. And then, as I said, check your event prior to using. This is the worst thing you could do, is turn up to an event and then just force chess clocks on people without getting the TO's approval or making sure it's in the pack. Because it's like when I go to Games Workshop events, I don't bring a chess clock because it's not in the pack. So I'm not going to bring it on people, and I wouldn't expect my opponent to. I'll just play as to the time. But when I'm playing at other events, I'll bring my chess clock with me just in case someone uses it on me, or I feel I need to use it on my opponent because of mitigating factors and not just because of my opponent. But that's pretty much it. I want this to be like not a way to force chess clocks onto people, but help break down the stigma of it, get more people aware of chess clocks, and more importantly, how you can use chess clocks yourself in your own practice to make you finish and play faster. As I can't stress enough, chess clocks have really helped speed up my own play when it comes to larger teams. It's so useful, right? And even if you don't use it at tournaments, using it to practice by yourself with friends is an amazing use for chess clocks, and I think it's worth the investment. But the other thing is, I've put a clear guide that's been play tested by both me and my local London scene. So if you wanted to use chess clocks as well and breach it to your local gaming group, there are now fixed guides for Kill Team itself for the new edition. So I hope that's useful for you and everyone you play with. But that's pretty much it for me today. Before I go, please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of this video. Did you find it useful or helpful? And, did it kind of change your mind about chess clocks, or didn't? To do nothing? Let me know. I'd be really interested to hear. And remember, I've got a Discord you can check out in the episode description below for free, as well as a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. And I'll quickly just thank my patrons. So for my adepts with the crit, I have Sam, Robin, Ninja Lee 83, Nick, Kenzie, John Thomas, Eric, Captain Murder, Daniel, Average Joe 27, Arthur, and Adzik. And then for my veterans of the crit, I have Samja. So thank you so much. Your support really means a lot to me and helps support the channel and brings, all this kind of content that I can't normally bring. So thank you so much. But that's pretty much it for me today. I was going to do more this week, but I'm really delayed. I was going to do the New York Open Battle Report final this week, but that video has been taking ages to render because I didn't realize it was in 4K. And normally I don't edit in 4K, so that's why it's taking so long. And then I'm just backlogged on so much stuff. I've got a tournament, hopefully, on the weekend, and then I'm just doing a lot of tournament prep. So work's kind of overtaken me in terms of stuff. But yeah, I hope this guide is really useful. I've actually wanted to talk about chess clocks for a while, just to kind of break the stigma of use and make people more aware of it, because I think it is a useful tool. And I used to be against them, but now I'm like, yeah, I can see where people are coming from. But remember, doesn't fix anything. But yeah, remember, no matter how many chess clocks you play against, that doesn't matter as long as you can always roll a crit.